Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining me on this episode of Val Talks Pets. In this episode, I'm going to spotlight one of the most popular reptile pets, the bearded dragon. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Val Talks Pets, the forum for pet parents and enthusiasts alike. Having been in the pet industry for more than 15 years now, I am going to share with you issues and questions that arise as I work with pet parents on a day-to-day basis. I am not a veterinarian, but I do have certifications in canine, feline, small animal, fish and reptile, and avian health and nutrition from the University of California, Davis Extension. When it comes to reptile pets, one of the most popular is the bearded dragon. Interestingly, bearded dragons are a genus of reptiles called Pagona. This genus contains 8 lizard species that are known by the more common name, bearded dragon. According to Wikipedia, the name refers to the underside of the throat or beard of the lizard, which can turn black and become inflated for a number of reasons. Unfortunately, the most common reason for the inflation is stress, but it also can be if the lizard feels threatened or is enticing a mate. Bearded dragons are semi-arboreal. This means they are a species that divide their time between living in trees and on the ground. They apparently like to spend a fair bit of time on branches, in bushes, or near human habitation. Being diurnal, meaning they are active during the day and sleep or rest at night, they like to sunbathe in the morning and afternoon. Sun is not a problem for bearded dragons in their native habitat, as they are indigenous to Australia, specifically deserts, woodland, and shrublands. In their native land, they love the warm and dry climate, but Australia experiences winter as well, with a drop in temperatures. Dragons will then go into what is called brumate or brumation. This is a winter dormancy that reptiles will go into, allowing them to conserve energy as temperatures drop. This state can be anywhere from 2 to 4 months. The reptile will wake up to drink water, but generally they are sluggish and stop eating. So, what does a bearded dragon look like besides the well-known beard? According to Wiki's description, bearded dragons are characterized by their broad, triangular heads, flattened bodies, and rows and clusters of spiny scales covering their entire bodies. Some even have the slight ability to change color in response to certain stimuli. Bearded dragons occur in a variety of colors, including browns and blacks, and morphs, and can range from being all dark to completely white under controlled breeding conditions. Males grow up to 60 centimeters or 24 inches long, and females up to 51 centimeters or 20 inches. Let's now look at how they became pets. Pagonas, being the genus, has the central bearded dragon as the most common species in captivity. There is another species a bit smaller called the Pagona henry-lawsoni that some may have if space is more of an issue. There is an interesting timeline with the introduction of dragons to pet status. The bearded dragon was introduced to the U.S. as a pet in the 1990s. Australia banned the sale of wildlife, including bearded dragons, back in the 1960s. This makes you wonder how the reptiles were introduced to the United States in the 1990s. It is believed that breeding began in the early to mid-1980s and largely developed from stock smuggled out of Australia between 1974 and 1990. It looks like the first dragons coming into the States came from Germany in the early 1980s. Then, commercial breeding took off and the development of what is called morphs. Morphs are different versions of the central bearded dragon. They have a few genetic traits, including hypomelanism and translucent, which refers to traits physically displayed by the dragon. Today, to acquire a bearded dragon, you would need to research reputable breeders, and I can't stress this enough. We all know there are disreputable people that prey on any trend to make money. Even thinking of buying from a pet store is questionable. Where did the store get the reptiles? How were they bred? And what conditions were the babies born into? Proper, reputable breeders ensure the dragon's health and will also vet new owners to make sure the dragon is going into a home that has the proper setup and the new parent is comfortable and schooled in the proper care and handling of the reptile. Having a reptile is not like having a dog or cat. There are some very specific feeding and habitation requirements that one must know. A proper breeder will ensure that the person they are selling to knows what to expect. We hope. Other ways to acquire a bearded dragon are through rescue organizations. Rescues for dragons will also make sure that the dragon is cared for properly and can be less expensive than a breeder. People often get pets, and in this case a reptile, that they have no idea how to care for and find that it is more of a task than they thought, and then reach out to a rescue to take the reptile. Again, hopefully. Also, some people are looking to rehome their dragon for various reasons, and they may offer the whole kit and caboodle of supplies to go with the dragon. The most important thing is to observe the dragon and make sure it looks healthy and does not have sunken eyes or a crusty nose or seems lethargic. What habitat do you need? Well, when setting up for a bearded dragon, there are some very specific things you will need to house the dragon properly. The essential habitat requirements as set out by Ellie's Reptiles are as follows. For the enclosure, you will need at least a 75 to 120 gallon tank measuring 48 by 24 by 24 in inches. You will need a temperature gradient. This is temperature change as it varies over space. A hot basking spot of 100 to 105 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 to 40 degrees Celsius, with a cool side of 75 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit or 24 to 29 degrees Celsius. Remember, the bearded dragon is used to sunning in hot desert sun mornings and afternoons, and then snoozing in the evening's cooler temperatures. Lighting is required with a high output of 10.0 or 12.0 linear UVB tube, essential to prevent metabolic bone disease, replaced every 6 to 12 months. You will then need substrate, a foundational layer. Options include a mix of sand and topsoil or excavator clay, which allows for natural burrowing. And it is not recommended to use silica or beach sand due to high risks of impaction, eye irritation, and bacteria. There's actually quite a debate as to what is the best substrate to use, so I would suggest going on bearded dragon forums and reputable breeder information to get a full picture of what to get. In terms of humidity, you will need to keep levels low to avoid respiratory infections and to ensure proper shedding of the skin. You will need to maintain a primarily dry, arid environment with a relative humidity of 30 to 50%, with higher levels up to 60 to 70% acceptable during nighttime hours or in specific well-ventilated areas. In most cases, maintaining correct temperatures, specifically a hot basking spot, is sufficient to keep humidity within a safe range. It is still recommended to use a digital hygrometer placed at the cool end of the enclosure. If the humidity is too high, you will need to increase the ventilation by opening vents or use a small fan to increase air circulation. The water bowl should be moved to the cool side to reduce evaporation. Avoid moisture-retaining substrates. You can also place a sock of dry rice or baking soda inside the tank to absorb moisture. A dehumidifier in the room can also be helpful, and remove non-arid plants. If the humidity is low, meaning the air is too dry, move the water dish to the warm side. Mist the tank lightly once a day. Place a hide with damp moss or paper towels on the warm side to provide a spot for shedding. And if it is extremely dry, partially cover a portion of the screen top. Now that we have the habitat set up, what kind of things should we put in it besides the basics? It is best to remember the natural habitat of the bearded dragon. Having logs or branches and rocks for climbing and basking are needed. They will also need 2 hides. These are places the dragon can go to on both sides of the tank, cool and warm, to feel secure and regulate their temperature. And make sure everything is secure so there are no accidents. Now we have to feed our dragon. First off, a bearded dragon is classified as an omnivore. This means that the dragon will consume both plants and animals to obtain energy and nutrients. Bearded dragons love to eat bugs, in particular live bugs. The idea is to choose a main feeder bug and then feed other bugs. Bug choices range from crickets, roaches, and worms. They also like an abundance of vegetables. There's a huge list of vegetables that can be accessed online, as well as a few that should not be fed, and the same goes for fruit. The other thing is to think about supplements. Calcium is the most important, followed by vitamin D3 and multivitamins. There are also protocols specifically for feeding a baby dragon and a juvenile and an adult. So, why would you have a bearded dragon as a pet? This is actually my main question. Let's look at some of the pros and cons as set out by dragoncrossing.wordpress.com. So, pros. In terms of temperament, bearded dragons are pretty relaxed. They like to climb, but they are not rambunctious. If you hold them, they usually stay still. Generally, they do not bite, scratch, or slap you with their tail. They have a cute ability to wave their front legs. They are, as described in this article, neat and can impress people. The cons. They can grow very big, like up to 2 feet long. They require an aquarium habitat that is at least 6 feet long. They are a fairly significant financial responsibility. From habitat to feeding, it adds up. Their upkeep is also significant. Food, lights, heaters, cleaning. It is a commitment. Okay, those are some of the pros and cons, but what is the appeal? Well, it appears that they are known to be affectionate and like hanging around with their pet parents. They have a very calm nature. Many owners of bearded dragons say their personalities are quite distinct and entertaining. They are a hypoallergenic pet that is quiet. They are active during the day and have cute mannerisms. They also are long-term, as they can live 10 to 15 years. It sounds to me like the appeal is mostly in the fact that the bearded dragon is a quiet pet, but also interactive and affectionate. It also has the benefit of being hypoallergenic. There is definitely a specific learning curve for their care. Not knowing how to have a proper habitat and feeding and caring can result in a very sick dragon and one that may succumb to poor care. You also need a fair bit of room for the habitat required. This is also an animal that lives 10 to 15 years. So, like rabbits, for example, parents get this pet because the child really wants it, But the child outgrows the pet as they go off to school and adventures, and it's the parents left caring for it. If you are not prepared for that, I would strongly suggest not getting this pet. There are also two things that I found that I would say put me off for having this kind of pet. First, I found the word novel and impressed a few times while researching. I don't like the idea of getting a pet for the reason that it's fun to say you have a bearded dragon or to draw attention to yourself. It's like the fact that this animal is a living, breathing pet that requires care and attention is all in one's possession for the novelty of it or to impress people. Do you really care about this creature, or are you just trying to use it for bragging or attention drawing? The other thing I found off-putting was in the feeding. Bearded dragons like bugs, live bugs. In one piece of research, they said the words, "So if you enjoy watching a good chase, feeding time will be fun." What? I don't think the bug thinks that way. Is this the Roman Forum? I seriously question someone who takes delight in watching a defenseless creature battle for its life. I get that the dragon in the wild would be catching insects. The food chain is evident. But at least the bug has the chance of getting away. I'm not saying I don't understand the need to feed the dragon what it thrives upon best. I just don't think that it is something in the pro column to achieve delight and fun by watching a poor creature fight for its life with no option for escape. That's my opinion anyways. I think if you want to have a bearded dragon, you need to be very realistic. Space, time, money, life commitment, all need to be realistically considered. Personally, I'm never a fan of taking animals that thrive in the wild, in the open air, being put in a confined space, bred in captivity or not. I would much rather see a bearded dragon basking on a tree branch in Australia than see one in an aquarium tank in someone's living room. That's just me. I know that there are many bearded dragon parents that love their dragons to pieces, and that's a good thing. If you want one, you have to love it and give it the best care possible. It relies 100% on you. That's why it is very important to do the research, because as I say, knowing is caring. Thank you for listening to Val Talks Pets. Please remember to follow and subscribe to ensure that you never miss an episode. To really help the show and make it easier for others to find, please rate and review each episode that you find interesting and helpful. And don't forget that you can also email me at val@valtalkspet.com with any topics that you would like me to address or with any questions you may have. Also, check out my website at valtalkspet.com for more information and cute pet pictures. Thanks for caring.